All right. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:06.
All right.
Can we get a roll call?
All right. Vice Chair Shrowen,
Here.
Board Member Cadwalder,
Here.
Board Member Fonger,
Here.
Board Member Crawford.
Here.
And we'll note that Chairman Beecham is absent.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
A motion that approve Perry's absence.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Any changes or?
No, sir.
I'd like to motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and support to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have opposed. All right, in minutes of the February 10th board meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes from February 10th.
I'll support.
All right, there's a motion and support to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? None. All right, item 4, public comment. We have,
It's not a public comment, but just for everybody's information, Matthew Skidum is sitting in on the board meeting tonight. He's one of the new fellows that we just hired.
Welcome.
thank you. Very glad to be here.
And here for, what, 2 weeks now? Had a
3 but 2.
Yeah, 2 but 3. Had a slight, had pre-existing family plans that rearranged a few things, but we're thrilled to have Matt on board. Like I said, he came on board as one of our ground workers that we've talked about hiring. We ended up bringing 2 on. The other one is Stephen Rickard. That information's in the manager's report, but thanks for coming, Matt. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here. All right. Well, welcome, and then we'll move on to action items.
All right. So this first one's I believe is a first for the board. So kind of outline what kind of the sequence of events that brought this to the board. But to boil it down, back in May, we placed 2 orders with ERMCO. One order, as you can see the details, was for kind of our projects. It was, for the most part, it was system expansion projects, Stony Bluff, Harvest Meadows, making sure we had transformers in stock to serve those. But at the same time, Ryan had also evaluated our stock needs as we were looking at some additional residential deployments, some other needs. We're seeing some things pick up. But at the same time, ERMCO implemented a price modification tool because lead times are so long. They give you a base quote, and in the base quote, it contains a pricing index, and when it comes to actual production time, that pricing index actually modifies the price a little bit, and not to our surprise, but to our disliking, our order came in about 20% over originally quoted. Again, that was fairly new, as a new mechanism. I don't think I've ever been a party to a transformer order, and it really was pre-supply chain issues. These pricing escalators or de-escalators weren't really widely used, but as you can see, we're here today to talk about the second order, which was our stock order. Originally quoted, it was under my $25,000 unbudgeted spending authority. When the order came in, it was $830 over that $25,000 mark. It's kind of a gray area because when we ordered it, we knew it wasn't going to come in until this fiscal year, so we budgeted for it in this fiscal year, but when it was ordered, it wasn't a budgeted item. So out of an abundance of caution and to ensure that we remained in compliance with all spending policies and purchase policies, I wanted to just go ahead and bring that back to the board, make you all aware of the situation, get formal approval to proceed with the order. Included in your packet is the quote and the original or the actual invoice, and they combine both orders into one invoice, but it does get a little more convoluted in that we had some transformers that were back ordered. As you can see, there's a lot of moving parts, but in my memo, I kind of outlined that we've already received these transformers. So, like I said, it's a very unique situation, but I'm bringing it back to the board, and it's my recommendation to authorize issuing payment for the transformer order. The new stock quote was $25,830, so it did trickle over that $25,000 spending authority mark by about $850. So,
Okay.
Any questions? I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is somewhat of a formality. We kind of need you all to approve this, or we're sending transformers back.
No.
No.
They'll have to come get them.
I was gonna say, and the lead time on them now is about a year, so I really
No, we're
prefer
not
not to go
sending
down
them
that
back.
route.
No.
So, I guess with that.
Understandable.
With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Vice Chair.
I do appreciate you bringing this up, because I don't know if we would have noticed necessarily, but that's also why there's a limit, right? So if the price had doubled, then we might be a little more concerned, right? But that's,
Yeah, and I didn't want to set a precedence of trying to say, oh, it's now budgeted or something. It
Right.
for full transparency's sake, I wanted to bring it back. Because you're right, the next time that escalation factor could go through the roof and it be more significant than $830 over my spending authority, so.
anyone have any comments?
Motion.
Understandable.
Motion to accept the new price on these transformers and authorize the additional spending on them.
Support?
Right, we have a motion and support to proceed with that order payment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And opposed? All right.
All right.
So next item B.
All right. Authorization to proceed with three-phase transformer order. So, similar to past requests, November, we started looking ahead to what single-phase units we need to order, and we put in a large order that's supposed to be here sometime around the end of the year. We're hopeful. We're hopeful to see them in 2020.
The end of this year?
Yeah, we're hopeful to see them in 2022.
Wow.
As so you can see, this is a reoccurring theme that supply chain is creating significant challenges. And I want to, while we're here, commend Ryan for his proactive approach. He's very much looking out for what our future potential needs, and we've asked him to see into his crystal ball and plan perfectly for everything we might need.
Perfect.
And he's doing a great job, and has been very proactive. But bringing to you today a proposal to buy 3 transformers totaling $37,443. And again, this is an escalator. This has an escalator on it. So the motion that I've asked for is to authorize the purchase of these transformers subject to price adjustments.
Okay.
But as you can see, these are some larger three-phase units that we're wanting to purchase in preparation for more commercial applications. Ryan's kind of gone through the list of what we anticipate potentially needing, also looking at what we're most likely to need. But as you can see as well, this order is a 32 to 34 week lead time, so we're planning pretty far out. Again, we've got to anticipate the needs before the needs come to us. The nice thing about these is Ryan got very strategic in what we ordered, and that it kind of balances our ability to spare out any transformer that's currently there, so we can make sure we can continue to meet existing needs, but also what fills the gaps in transformers that we have from a stock standpoint for the potential for new deployments, which we would anticipate again this summer needing some. I did bring this to you, and we are only quoting out, speccing out one vendor for this, which is a little abnormal. But again, it's more supply chain issues. We typically like to go with ERMCO. ERMCO won't quote three-phase units right now.
Oh,
They won't,
Not taking orders.
not even taking orders. So Ryan reached out to Howard, which is not particularly a brand we're wanting to go with, but just to, for a cost comparison, and it was just shy of twice as expensive. So 100% more expensive to get a new unit from a manufacturer that we're not particularly thrilled with. So that's why we're bringing the T&R quote as rebuilds. And I know the board is aware that we've had some failures with rebuilds that we can all see from our current locations. That was from a different manufacturer. Ryan, I trust Ryan's judgment and his evaluation, and he has, I guess I won't speak for him, but been pleased with the quality of work, and we've got a great relationship with them. They support it for. They've got a better warranty than some of the other vendors that he had looked at, and. I don't know, Ryan, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, the other vendors, they would only give us a year warranty on rebuilds. Seems a little low, and we've had some really good luck with T&R units lately. The last few that we've received back from them, they look like brand new. We sent a unit out to them to have rebuilt and retanked, essentially because it was rusted out. We could pull that out at the warehouse. You guys would take a look at it. You would think it was brand new. It is just a phenomenal job of what they do there. So we're pretty darn comfortable with the work we're getting from them, and the prices are reasonable. And this keeps us ahead of the needs that we have. We have units on hand that are going to take care of the businesses that are coming up this summer. Benton Baker's new building, Trinity Cannabis on Bowes Road. We have units to serve them, but once we deploy those two, these will replace those two in our stock, so that's why we need to keep up.
absolutely.
So when do the warranties begin on these things?
As
When
soon
we
as
put
you-
them into service, or
As soon as
they
you take
get delivered?
possession, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we're having those as backup, they could sit around for a while before.
Yep, warranties could go, they could expire as they sit on the shelf, that's correct, but that's a chance to take.
Is there any way to just dummy power them up, or have them in some kind of
Well, just-
dummy service mode to,
Just sitting there is just fine. I think if you're gonna use it, and energize it, I think you would be putting unnecessary stress on it. You just letting it sit there doing nothing is perfectly fine. You just test the oil, make sure it's visibly fine, it's not leaking, you're gonna be fine.
but you get my thinking, it's like, well, we're using it, and if it happens to,
Oh, I see
take
what
a
you're
dump in
saying.
that first year, then we're covered.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there, I guess, but there's not really a way to put load on it. I mean, you could
Yeah.
energize it, but
It's the load side of it, making that transformer
Yeah.
do work that's gonna, the only thing we could do is potentially actually use these under warranty and deploy them if timing works out, but with lead times so far out, it'd be great to take some of these units and be able to put them right out to, these fresh,
Right.
fresh rebuilds, put them out there, Trinity Cannabis or something, but at a 34-week lead time. And this lead time, from the time Ryan originally got this quote, what was it? 20,
just 3-4 weeks in between.
and I think the lead time extended by 2 months
Yep.
in about 2 to 3 weeks' time.
So if we ordered these, when would they come in?
We're hoping that they're still going to honor the 32 to 34 weeks.
Yeah, they'll stick to that, and they may trickle them in sooner than later. And once they get one ready, as they go through production, they may get it done faster than the 32 weeks,
Do you think
potentially.
they're trying to under promise and over deliver?
No, these guys they shoot you straight. They're pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, the units that we're putting at Benton Baker and Trinity Cannabis are. Honestly, they're slightly a little bigger than they need to be. They're twice the size of these 225s. I mean, they're 500 kVA units. These units are more likely the ones that we would deploy out there, so that would put them into service once we get them. We'd have a little more AMI data on those two businesses by the time we receive these, and we would know that, hey, this 225 is better suited for this location because we're not even running close to what that 500 is capable of handling, so that's kind of the thought process there. So they would essentially go into service. We just have to take an outage on the customer at their convenience and swap them out.
Great.
So,
That's a good point, though.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, and they
To have that warranty actually being used.
yeah, and Ryan does a great job of, Ryan and Casey
Yeah.
dig into the data from the AMI, and you know, if we have one on, it's hard to justify outside of a circumstance like this. You're putting the doing a swap like that, but when you can maximize what you have, including warranty, and use that data to make data-driven decisions on how to meet that customer's need, all the little benefits add up to a big benefit and really justify that. Work probably would happen on overtime hours, especially with businesses. We accommodate. We don't want to disrupt their business, because it's not a long outage by any means, but it's an outage that would disrupt the business. And especially with the cannabis operation, that's something that we'll want to coordinate very closely, just because that crop is susceptible to.
I think they have
loss.
cycles that they could
Yeah,
naturally.
we would just
work
want
with
to
them for
coordinate
sure.
with them.
Yep.
But they've got a lot of, even on the down period, they've got ventilation and air handling requirements. Trinity Cannabis is going to be brand new for us. I mean, granted, cannabis growing is new load to serve, but that's going to be a greenhouse style. So it will even be more unique than the Admiral building or the micro grows that we have. But yeah, we'll work with the customers very closely to coordinate that. But it really, the benefits start to really stack up when you've got a warranty and you're able to leverage that data to maximize your stock. So.
Okay. So do we have to,
Yeah, my recommendation, so staff's recommendation to authorize staff to purchase the three-phase transformers, the three-phase transformers, totaling $37,443 and subject to price adjustments.
So motion, you've got a,
Yeah, just one quick comment. So would there be like a adjustment threshold that would say, well, wait a minute, that's,
We're,
or is it just kind of wait and see what it is at the time?
yeah, you don't have much option. I think they would happily say, fine, we'll take them, because they can charge a premium. They can charge a premium for available stock right now. But yeah, it's unique this is very unique to our current our current circumstances, because as far as, I don't know if Ryan, you can ever recall, or Casey, you've bid out a lot of work. This is very, very unique situation that we've never dealt with. So I'd be lying to you if I had a game plan in hand. If they came back and said, it's 100% more expensive, I do think that, if it reached a level that I wasn't comfortable with, I would absolutely bring it back to the board, just like the other one. But from what we're seeing, the order, the transformer that came in 20% over, we ordered that at pretty much, the base quotes we're getting now are at that 20% higher threshold.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not, there's not
So
been
it's
a
not
lot of
like-
movement continuing in that direction. The hope, and it's a hope and a prayer, but the hope is that we've kind of reached that cap on that price escalation. But I think we've seen some corrections, we've seen some flattening of that curve, but this time last year, or summer of last year, we had basically no COVID cases in Michigan, and then Omicron took off and it disrupted supply chain, disrupted everything worse than we would have anticipated last summer. So I would definitely won't claim to have a crystal ball.
Well, I think there's a 20% increase basically across the board for everything,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Retail, commercial, building supplies, automobiles.
There's a lot of places that it's far worse than 20%.
Yeah.
If you're buying a sheet of OSB, I don't know what it's at now, but if it came down to 20% over what it was 2 years ago, I think it'd be flying off the shelves.
It's $68 a sheet right now.
It used to be 25.
yep.
Yeah, so we could be in far worse shape. If
Yeah.
transformer order does that, we'll be scrambling to figure something else out, because if this
Yeah.
turns into a $90,000 order, it's really tough to justify. But we don't anticipate that, and they build, they're building a lot of that into the quotes now that they're a little further into understanding the impacts.
But I figure if they can be kind of accurate about a 32 to 34-week window, they must know enough about the supply chain to at least predict some pricing. So, shouldn't be that bad. So should we buy like 10 of them and then sell the others to?
There you go. Hey, now we're
Alternative
thinking.
revenue stream.
So you got a closet
Yeah.
full of toilet paper too.
Do-
huh?
yeah. Well, do we have room for, I like what you're thinking, because the other,
We've got a lot of storage space back here.
It's in the engine room.
Transformers. All right. Any other comments on this order? I'll entertain a motion to authorize we received this.
Support a motion to authorize the purchase of the transformers.
now support.
All right, motion and support. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Or none?
All right.
Item C.
All right, so this is a benevolence request. This is a little bit of a different benevolence request because I did actually seek out, this opportunity was shared with me, and I reached out to Mark Miner and thought, educated him on our policy, our benevolence policy, and encouraged him to submit a request, and he did that. That's included in the packet, but I did that because I feel like, as one of our strategic objectives, it's kind of controlling the narrative. It was a major theme at the fall MMEA conference that Craig joined some staff on. It was really about a change in public power to promote what we do. There's a vast misunderstanding across the country as to what public power is. A lot of people don't realize, people close to Lowell don't know that we have our own electric company, and it's a tremendous asset to this community. I mean, our electric rates are 20% cheaper than consumers from a residential standpoint. Ryan's going to report on a month of no outages, period, in February. So, I mean, we are Light and Power is a tremendous asset to this community. So, as one of our strategic initiatives, it's really to develop a calculated communication plan, and part of that is supporting other nonprofit organizations that enrich this community. Just like we're part of the community, we want to support those organizations that enrich this community and take a collaborative, community-based approach to promoting Lowell more than anything. So I did reach out to Mark and asked him, spoke with Chairman Beecham, and kind of shared a little twist on my perspective on it, and how I think there's value in this for Light and Power, and he did want me to share that he's supportive of the 3-year commitment at the MVP level, which is outlined in the sponsorship opportunities, which comes out to $450 a year. And if you look at this just from an advertising standpoint, not even looking at what the organization is, that it's a great organization here in town, but you look just at the advertising opportunity, for $450, there's a lot of exposure, and from an advertising standpoint, one of the best things that we can do is just share our logo, share that we are part of the community. So normally I don't make recommendations when it comes to benevolence requests, because that's really board driven in how we're going to support the community, but I will make a recommendation on this one because it does align so much with other strategic initiatives, and I feel like this would be a great tool to give staff to further our communication efforts. So it is my recommendation to approve the benevolence request from Lowell Little League for a 3-year MVP commitment. So
Okay. So aside from the just the logo being on there, is there anything that we can put on there that's going to be visible, like public power on your side, or I don't know, just something that,
We can talk with them. You know, if you look in here, what it comes with is a 3 foot by 6 foot sign. It says the business name and logo. If it's business name, I don't know if we can add. I mean, our logo is our name, so our
Yeah.
name's in the logo. So I don't know if we could put something under it. But we can pursue that. It also does come with one of the teams will have a Low Light and Power logo on their jersey, so there's a lot of exposure. But I'm not sure from
any
a sign
kind of
standpoint.
visible short tagline
Yeah.
that makes impact. I would like to see.
Yeah, we can pursue that. I can't promise anything.
Yeah.
But we can pursue that and see how much control we would have on that messaging. But it's something that we would definitely issue a press release on, or do something.
Right.
Even if it couldn't be on the sign, it's something that we would try to leverage and build more of a narrative around than just a sign in the outfield. And from my personal experience, the having Low Light and Power on a kid's jersey makes such an impact, because that's who they identify with. I play for the Low Light and Power team, and it's such a positive thing. And in general, I like personally to support non-school sponsored, just youth activities. I've got a soft spot for kids. I think I've got to. Most people, you'll see the kids as the future, and being able to prop up those organizations and give opportunities to youth, I see as a great value add for our community. So, but happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I don't normally make recommendations, but I do feel like this one is, could be justified strictly from an advertising standpoint.
When we looked at doing it with them a couple years ago, 4 years ago, basically all they wanted was a PDF. We had to just design what we wanted. They took our PDF,
Put it on.
they had the banners made. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah. So
we could do,
we just design it and
Yeah.
include whatever we include's what they're going to
yeah,
convert to a
whether
sign.
they're still doing that or not, but it was literally that simple, just to create a PDF and send it on. And
Awesome.
Well, what's your argument against, I don't know, going to the $700 level rather than the $450?
To me, it was kind of just a balancing act in case, I would like to see us support more youth organizations, and if for some reason, this would be a 3-year commitment, so if it kind of gains some steam and we start getting a couple other requests, I think it would be important to plan ahead to make sure, we didn't run. I think, Daniel, we talked about it. Make sure we don't run out of money or have,
Fair enough, yeah.
have to tell some organization, sorry, we've expended our benevolence budget, and you have to come back next year or something. I'd love to think that we're going to be able to get our name in so many awesome places that the benevolence fund gets used up.
Better to spread the butter evenly, so, yeah.
Yeah, when we looked into it, it was the 2 packages. I couldn't justify the higher end package. It wasn't that much more bang for my buck, right? And at the end of the day, I was getting a ton of exposure, and it was for the youth, so I was great with it.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of money here in town with our company, so I like doing it.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, was about any other organizations that would be similar, like we pick one, but.
Yeah, and I did
this is
see.
If we feel this is a good idea, like strategically, that make sure we look at other opportunities too.
Yeah, and it's important for me personally. It's important to make sure we don't support just sports or anything. Like I've actually I'm going to go meet with the director at Lowell Arts. They're doing an event outside here actually in May, I believe. I'm just going to touch base with her, but if there's arts, if there's a library, if there's any sort of youth organization, kind of leave it open. But I do think I would like to And we've got great staff. One of our staff members brought this to my attention, and it came out of a conversation where we were just strategically talking about developing our communication plan, and it was on there. So it's turning into a more of a staff and team effort to identify these. And I've kind of said, here's kind of the parameters is, Lowell based, needs to be here for the citizens of Lowell. I like youth organizations because I think you get a lot of bang for your buck when you talk about youth organizations, and it really aligns with public power of enriching the communities that you serve. But I think it would be important to see what's next, what's available, and who has an interest in supplying these requests for benevolence funds.
I like that. I mean, just as a brainstorm kind of thing, maybe like the science club at the high school or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just
If there is one.
They will be around. They do every year. I bet you I get 20 different groups coming in and asking for money. And I budget X amount of dollars every year to try to meet. And I think last year it was the chess club.
Okay.
First time they ever asked. And I says, yep, we'll give you money. But I've done the equestrians, we've done the football, I think I've been involved with all of them. So, but when they start to come, Charlie, they're going to come one right after the other and see you.
Yeah.
We'll get on the.
And then as a board, it's hard to just, it's easy for me because it's my checkbook, but for the board, it'd be, which one do you pick? Which one do you say no, thank you?
And that's where I think, the parameters of, community-based, Lowell-based, I tend, in previous experience, to stray away from school-sponsored
Yep.
events because our ratepayers are also paying taxes that are
gotcha.
supporting the schools. Now, the board could, choose to go a different direction and whatever, but that's, in general, that was kind of my thought process in the past is who relies strictly on donations, entry fees, community support, because those are the things that if you don't have community support, they can fall to the wayside. And, it's a quality of life thing. It's propping up and supporting the community that we're a part of, where school events are, supported through tax revenue. So.
Yeah. Although,
To some
like,
extent.
To some extent, yes.
yeah, there are clubs
I
and
would
that
say
kind of
there's
thing.
followings too.
Clubs, do rely on,
Fundraising efforts and
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
When you take like the Arts Council this weekend, Get Lucky in Lowell, they did a free painting class for anybody that wanted to come in. They supplied the paint, the papers, the brushes. I seen a lot of sunflowers getting painted. Apparently that was the easiest one, but and that's kind of things that are pretty cool. They do that. They're a limited budget, but there again, they do an awesome job. So that could be one of the ones.
Okay.
I was going to mention that we were attended the Wizard of Oz, the high school, playbill, has all the business names in it, I call it first play. But, but I remember some of the other ones, you see in there, and it's just, it occurred to me
That's
there's a lot of these.
high level of exposure, yeah.
I guess one thing I probably should have said earlier, but I used to be a Little League coach, that was like 3 years ago or so I haven't been involved since, so I'll still vote. I'm not going to, there's no conflict or anything, but I figured I should at least mention that. But I think it might be worth revisiting our policy, at least, because it's number one, if we're going to start being a little more intentional tying to our strategy, it might be worth putting that in the policy and just kind of outlining here, like when you kind of talked about focusing on groups that rely on donations versus some that already have tax funding, should that be a priority or a factor in our benevolence policy? The other thought is just the time commitment. Was it a 10-year commitment? Was that something we do, or 3 years to me seems reasonable, because I kind of realize they need some certainty too. They can't just go year by year.
Right.
And we save $50 a year.
Yeah. But I don't know if I don't think our policy talks about multiple, actually sign in, we tend to do something like the same thing every year, but there's no commitment that we do that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's something we should address in our policy, like putting a time limit or a total cap, over a certain amount of time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something we could talk about. I don't think we have to solve it now, but
Well,
And that's
and
what you
right
consider.
now, we have a cap of 5,000 a
5,000.
year. And,
Right.
I mean, as general manager, would you entertain the idea of reevaluating that? And,
So I think we've talked about it kind of tangentially at the board a little bit, and it's high up on the priority list from a policy review that we're planning on starting this month, but the agenda got full. But there's been talk of linking our benevolence budget to a percentage of revenue. That way, as we grow, our impact on the community grows proportionally to that. If we lose an industry and we go back the other way, we don't have that same commitment. Because I'm talking with Perry.
So we can throttle this.
Kind of
as
adjust
needed,
based
yeah.
on revenue. But Perry had talked about wanting to just link it to a percentage of anticipated revenues, and it's kind of it would grow with us or escalate or de-escalate with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's, in my eyes, it's a PR and marketing expense.
It's a gray. It very much is
depends
a.
what we're doing with it.
Yeah, it's a very much a gray area because and that's why I made a recommendation is from an advertising standpoint alone. I think you couldn't reach that many customers with $450 in them, and we couldn't do much. If you're going to do just a bill insert and you got to print out 3,000 pieces of paper and include it in postage and time, you barely do a two-sided flyer for that, if you even could. So, the dollar value from an advertising alone, and then you throw in the goodwill and just the benefit of supporting a youth organization, it kind of piles up. But from an advertising standpoint, there's a lot of value in this. But it does depend on how we promote it. Our benevolence activities, how we, what they do, what whoever we're supporting does with our support. The showboat, we did a donation last year to this showboat, and on our end, we didn't promote it very well. On their end, I don't think it got hardly, it was more of true benevolence support, where the lighting contest we do with Rotary is a big, it's in flyers and all over Facebook, and so there's just different levels of marketing attached to different requests.
That's my favorite one, lighting for Christmas. I like that one. We started that when I was on the board.
We're gonna, Rotary's got this past year was a little bit of a down year. We're gonna talk with Patrick Doyle, who's taken a bigger role with Rotary, and we're gonna really ramp it up a little bit this year, I think. Start planning ahead of time and try to really encourage some more participation, but that definitely off topic, sorry. I like that one too.
Me too, I'm gonna need a bigger transformer at my building. Because if you can't see it from space, it ain't worth doing.
You all good? We're good. Make a motion to accept benevolence request for 3 years at the MVP level.
I'll support it.
Any further comments on the topic? Not then, we have a motion of support to authorize the benevolence request for Little League, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, yes.
All right.
Let's move on to item D.
All right, so this is Defined Benefit Plan Surplus Division Adoption Addendum. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, I'll try to boil this down, try to kind of outline, but basically to get down to the brass, kind of the nuts and bolts of this. If the board's still committed to expediting the funding of our pension liability, essentially this is the tool to do that. you've got two options if you're going to pay additional towards your pension liability, or your unfunded pension liability. You can either pay directly to your pension division with MERS, or you can set up a surplus division. If you pay directly to your pension, every year they recalculate what you've got to pay for the upcoming year to stay on the original amortization schedule, which should, that's a very big air quotes, should have us fully funded by 2040. So if we were to budget a bunch extra this year and pay a bunch towards it directly towards the division, we'd still be on the same track. As far as a timeline, it would just reduce future payments. If we put it in a surplus division, it doesn't get factored into next year's payments. It kind of runs parallel with our pension, and then you can merge them at the end. So when theoretically, if you wanted, you could fund your surplus division on top of all your original, your normal contributions, and build essentially a nest egg. Once the funds are committed there, they have to stay there, and they can only be used for your pension liability, but they're invested just like the other pension funds, and they're factored into your overall funding, but ultimately you want to apply those funds at a later date, and at that point it reduces the amount of time. I explained this to Daniel about a week ago, and you really gotta, it's not worth the time to go into the details of how our pension funding works, because it really just doesn't change the dollars and cents, but ultimately this is the tool to expedite the funding of our unfunded pension liability. And as long as the board is still, would still like to pursue that, shortening the time frame till we get fully funded, this is the mechanism that MERS recommends. And it gives us more control. We can choose when to apply it to our pension liability. If for some reason we get 4 years into it and we have a big expense, we can take and merge that over and say, all right, it's going to fund this year's expenses, or we can apply it whenever the board chooses to. But ultimately, this is the tool that's needed to give us maximum control over the additional contributions that we're going to make towards our unfunded liability.
Just to add from what we talked about, it's just opening the tool to us. This is not putting any money in it. It's
Yes.
just allowing us to have, it's just saying we have this as an option. So if we as a board sit down at a later date and say, hey, we have an extra $100,000 to put towards this, now we can put it in this if we'd like.
Yes, there is.
It's not really a commitment.
Yeah, all it is there's no impact to our unfunded liability by establishing this, and there's no required minimum contributions to put in the surplus. Theoretically, we could create it, sit it over here, and put $0 in it. Obviously, we wouldn't probably want to do that, but it ranges from $0 to whatever surplus we want to put in there. I will also note that MERS actually does not require this board to approve this because we're under the city's umbrella. So, but with past practices, and I just think it's a good idea to have you all make this decision and get that approval before carrying it to city council. But ultimately, this would have to go to city council for final approval before it was established.
Yeah, and we're in full favor of doing it, because the way we get our money is depending on the state sharing, right? So we get good years, and was it 2040, we'll have our pension up to snuff. We looked at it as this year we've got some surplus money. We really didn't have a use for it. This gives us an area to pack it away for a rainy day fund. So to balance at the end of the 1 year, when you got to balance your budget, if MERS and we're sitting with 300, 400,000 in that rainy day fund, we can just transfer it right over. We can get through the hard time, and then we can keep moving on.
Yeah, and this is the exact same tool that the city uses. They established a surplus division. Again,
Yep.
it's definitely the recommended approach from MERS because you have that control. You have the control of when you put money in there, how it's used. You know, it stays invested just like all your other funds. So why not retain that control?
Yeah, by my understanding too, Charlie, right? Once you set it up, you can put money in as you want, it's not a payment every month you have to make.
Yeah.
It's, okay, we got an extra 100,000, so let's just put this for the rainy day fund. We looked at it as if you can get it built big enough, you can go from a 2040 to possibly looking at like a 2036, 2037 and have our pension, right? Because it's just sitting there. If you never need it, you've got it at the end, so.
Oh, this won't let me. And actually, I included in here some projections, and it won't let me zoom.
That's the same ones we looked at.
Yeah, I don't know what. I think it's because I've got it here. But the graph on the right is alternative funding. Alternative funding strategies. The blue line that's the lowest is that base case that carries you all the way out to 2040, and your annual contributions that would be necessary to get there. Then you jump up to the next line. It's to have it fully funded in 12 years. The next line up is fully funded in 10 years. The next line is fully funded in 8 years. So those are kind of the three trajectories that our thought was to try to expedite it. Make adjustments on an annual basis, but knowing that we're probably not going to be able to expedite it to 8 years. But I think it's very reasonable to get very close to expediting it to have it fully funded in another 12 if that's the route that the board wants to go. There's a lot of benefits to the surplus division. There will be changes in assumptions that will change our unfunded liability. I'm anticipating a change in their actuarial and anticipated actuarial rate of return. The CEO of MERS has kind of quietly admitted that it's probably going to be reduced, and if you reduce your anticipated returns, your money's going to earn you less money and your unfunded liability will grow. So this is a tool to help us bridge bad times for us if we get big expenses, also bridge bad times in the market, bridge bad times in changes in assumptions or changes in experience studies. So it really is just a good tool that retains that flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like we've covered it. I say we move the question.
So it's kind of like a HSA in a way, but not without the tax benefit, so to speak, but like it's a like in the sense that an HSA, you can put money into it. If you don't use it, you still keep it. But you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
But for an HSA, it actually makes sense to use it. But
And what it really
like a separate account, you can apply to this if you choose, but if you don't, you still retain it.
Yeah, you still retain it. And one of the benefits here is it opens up investment opportunities. We cannot invest in the same things that MERS can. So, while their rate of return's not great, it's better than the 2% that we're getting off of mortgage-backed securities right now. So, there's your trade-off, I guess. Your HSA, you got tax benefits. Here, you got investment benefits.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and MERS is looking at a 7.3% return for this coming fiscal year. And that's hopeful, especially what we're going through right now, right? But as far as our liability funding, we're sitting at just about 64% funded, which is pretty good because we were tickling the 60 there for a while, and we moved up the ladder. So
Where are we at?
About 56. We're actually behind from a funding percentage, but our overall liability, the city's got a bigger uphill battle to climb because their overall liability is greater than our overall liability. We were able to shut down the pension plan before, so we capped our liability when we close down the pension plan, where our total liability is a few $1 million less than the city's. So
Yeah, it's easier for Light Power to come up and out of it than
Yeah.
it will be for us as a city, but these setting money aside is a neat thing, because it was asked to MERS if that could be done. And MERS came back and said, yeah, that's a great idea, so.
Right. So, no further comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve this as a defined benefit surplus adoption.
A motion to approve the DVP SDAA.
All right.
that's fantastic. That is fantastic.
You did that 3 times fast.
I'm not gonna put that word.
He was sitting over there practicing
I
that.
wrote it down because I was like, I love acronyms, but this one's terrible.
DBPSDA, yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
We have a second.
I seconded.
Great.
Yeah, I supported, yeah.
All right, then, then all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
And opposed?
All right, on to the budgets.
Yes.
All right, so included in your packet, and what we do every year and is go out in the March board meeting, we approve in draft format a budget. The city charter requires that we supply this to the city by the end of the month. This doesn't go to city council yet. It's really just to give them an idea of, there's the city starting their budgeting process. Big things, the pilot number for the city, they definitely, that pilot payment is obviously very critical to the city. So, but basically it just goes and sits at the city, and then we bring back in May a final budget, and that budget is ultimately incorporated into the city's final budget for city council consideration. But I'll go ahead and dive in. I want to hit a couple just highlights, anticipated changes between now and draft budget, or now between draft budget and final budget, and kind of what we were able to include in here. So to start, sales are projected, we're budgeting about a 2.9% increase in sales. I believe this is a fairly conservative number, but we have to move power cost and revenue together, and we rely heavily on MPPA for our power cost numbers as our power supply managing agency. So we plan on, Megan and I have got a list of questions and some meetings to kind of fine tune our power supply costs, because we do anticipate more growth than kind of what they're projecting for us. So once we have those numbers, we'll also back into where what revenues that power supply would support. But even as of now, that 2.9% is a pretty base level, I would say. We didn't, and what we'll do over the next couple months is try and gain a better understanding of exactly what some of our known businesses are, when they're going to come online, when they're going to bring load on. But in the draft budget, we are not incorporating much of anything from either of the grow operations or the increase from the Bet and Baker facility, or Culver's, or any unknown development at this point. We are factoring in the growth from a residential standpoint. Those are a little more regular and a little more incremental, where the commercial loads big chunky bits of growth, and we want to make sure we have a good understanding of those. But we are budgeting for 2.9%. I will highlight that under total service revenue, we're budgeting a negative 41%. That's an auditing requirement. Our auditor requires that any compensation we receive from mutual aid hit, if you look at the miscellaneous service revenue, so second to bottom line, it's sitting at $77,000. We only budgeted 10. that entire delta is from mutual aid. So we don't budget planning for mutual aid, but anytime mutual aid happens, it's a full offset. So any of our additional overages in revenue is offset by overages in maintenance and operation expenses. So that number stands out, and wanted to highlight that. That is not abnormal. You go down to the other revenue towards the bottom, we're showing a decrease in anticipated from 28% decrease from projected to budget, projected this year to budget next year. And that's really, that's where customer contributions to their project. So if we go out and build a service for Betten Baker or somebody, we allot them kind of so much money based on our line extension policy, and then anything over and above that, they have to pay for. So these bits come in chunky pieces. So we just want to be conservative there. Going on to generation expenses, see a pretty big decline in the overall budget. Again, that is due to a kind of a one-time project this year. That's largely in the safety and training expense. Casey's going to be doing an arc flash study this year, still this year. So that's kind of a non-recurring expense. So that's not actually it's not a decrease in reoccurring expenses. It's just a one line item that moved that number. Total purchase power expense is anticipated to go down, and this was to be expected. Do want to highlight it. A lot of that is the Campbell debt falling off. We are fully debt-free on Campbell at this point, but that's only quasi-true. Our debt service is paid off, but they're immediately rolling into collecting capital for decommissioning that plant. So some of that debt didn't necessarily truly fall off. It was swapped for a capital call in anticipation of future expenses for decommissioning that. Again, you go on to distribution expenses, up 1.5%, so just a slight increase, very much on par with everything. One thing I do want to highlight, it's not a lot of dollars, but it is a shift, is if you go down to marketing and advertising, in the advertising expense, we put some extra funds in the budget there. So, and that's really towards promoting paperless billing, promoting the new portal, making sure we give that product the attention so we're able to reap the benefits on the back end. So we're putting a little bit more into the advertising budget in anticipation of some additional promos and some projects that the staff kind of has eyed for marketing and advertising efforts. And anybody can stop me at any time if I'm just going to kind of keep running through.
How do we do the market and advertising? Is that in-house by our employees, or do we outsource it?
We typically, most of that's in-house. We work closely with Hooper some on graphic design and stuff, but most of that's handled in-house. Emily and Lisa kind of pair up. Emily tackles the majority of it, but Emily and Lisa pair up, and really is from a new customer portal and paperless billing and reoccurring payments standpoint, it's really an office staff collaborative effort. And then, awesome. I'm sure they'd appreciate hearing
I
that.
mean, every time I'm on Facebook or, you look at certain stuff, it's always popping up, and it's very clear and simple to understand. I don't personally have a light bulb in my house on the east gate, so I'm just on the cutoff, but,
It's a shame.
That's too bad.
I know.
So, quick question on
Yeah.
the tree trimming one. So it's a big difference relative to the projected, but really it's the same budget we've had every year.
Yeah, and I'll let Ryan, we didn't have a detailed conversation, but I think we've been very fortunate this year. And more than anything, we want to put funds there, so if we get in a bad spot, we've got the flexibility to say, we need to divert more attention to this. But Ryan has been, my hope is that we can start to see a couple years in a row of a reduced need to spend that money. But I don't know if you have anything.
We've been working towards that pretty diligently, I guess. I mean, we've really been trying to be as aggressive as possible to get all the problem trees removed, that people are hesitant of having them go just because they're trees being planted directly under power lines, they just don't work out.
Yeah.
If you constantly have to go back there and trim them every other year because that's how fast things grow. I mean, I've only been here 6 years, just under 6 years. I personally, we've been back to locations 3 times since I've worked here to trim the same trees. That's too often. They need to go. But it can't be down there, and that everybody's pretty much on board with that plan. We go out and we chat with them way ahead of time. They're usually the understanding of what the plan is. Just a very small percentage of people that remind us of the past practices that we had around here, and they, after a little discussion, they usually see the light too, I guess. So.
Yeah. And Ryan and I had a conversation with a customer last week, losing track. Board meeting being on Tuesday throwing me off.
Yeah.
Keep thinking everything happened earlier this week, but it was last week. We had a great conversation with a customer that had a bad history with light and power, with the city, just in general was very protective of trees, and we took the opportunity to share that we're a different, there's a different set of people here, different mentality, different approach to more of a collaborative approach to tree trimming. So the hope is, when you look at budget impact year over year, eventually we can see a decline in our need to spend that. But I definitely wouldn't want to take 1 year of a reduced budget and say that's going to be the trend forward. Now, I think this will be, actually I know this will be a line item that we want to dig into much more and try and project out, how much time, really dive a little bit deeper into this specific line item and see, is this an area that we can start to peel back? And that'll be, really driven by, conversations with Ryan and Megan, and, what does this budget get us is going to be the question. How many man hours, how many, how far, what would we accomplish with this and convert dollars to impact on the system? And if we don't think we have that need for that same impact, we can start to peel back and let our need drive the budget, where, to be honest, at this point, it's like, all right, I can't justify dropping it $20,000 and putting us in a tough spot, but we need to look closer, and it's one that we'll definitely want to spend quite a bit of time diving into.
Okay. Yeah, no, I wasn't necessarily saying we needed to reduce it. I was just kind of curious why it was only 30,000 this year, or why are we only expecting it? Is it we just didn't have time to do trimming, or did we
I think the need
just not have the trimming to do?
I think it's more need-based, and I think that might change come spring. I don't know how the growing season, I'm not familiar enough with the growing season here, but I know in the South, you can not have a tree problem today, and in 3 weeks, you can be getting calls left and right that you've got, once trees start to bud out and leaf and branches get a little, so that number may change. I don't know, Ryan, you'd have a much better idea. I mean, they've been very proactive though, so.
We try to do the majority of the tree trimming, like the large volume of tree trimming throughout the wintertime when there's not many leaves on the trees. It's just a little less obvious of what happened. It's not as much shock and awe to people, because you start taking branches down with lots of leaves on it, and it looks like there's a major change,
There's a hole.
and it's easy to see.
Yeah.
And it's just easier to just do it in the wintertime, and
for the health of the tree, actually,
Yep.
the sap is down
Yeah.
and it's, dormant, so, yeah.
yeah, we just had a discussion also this morning, it was this morning or sometime this week, about we're coming right up on April 15th, and we need to think about, is there any areas where there's oak trees, because after April 15th, we really don't want to be touching them, because then you could spread the oak wilt and things like that. So if there's anything else there, we need to get that done at a time.
I was gonna say, I'm learning stuff. I've never heard of oak wilt, so.
Yeah,
It's pretty
increasing
important.
issue, isn't it?
Yep.
Wow.
It's not as bad as the emerald ash borer.
I was gonna say, I'm very familiar with the emerald ash borer. Cool. But All right, I'll say happy to answer any additional questions. But yeah, that's one of them that we definitely want to look into and decide, is it an area to reduce? Is it something we don't want to? Why was this year lower? A lot of questions to answer between draft and final budget. Going down, I'll highlight under admin, general outside services, the last line item there, the OS outside services. You'll see a pretty substantial increase. And I think our projected this year will probably end up getting a little closer to that 90 maybe, but included in this is all of our legal, standard import, a lot of different outside services fall here, but included here and why this number is higher is based on the feedback from, I believe it was the last board meeting in discussions of our strategic plan. Got a quote from Steve and APPA for facilitating a full-on update to the strategic plan, and it's a pretty intensive exercise with them. It involves typically 3 site visits, so cost gets up there, and it's something that we can revisit at a maybe next board meeting, but your budgeted cost on that's about $25,000. So that's an increase here, and then we're also due next spring to reopen negotiations with IBEW, and that brings on a new outside legal expense to help guide us through that process. So those are some of the big items that cause that fluctuation. Some other items that stay in there that we may or may not use is, we just earmark some money for Williams and Works for if we need easements drawn up, or we need them to go out and stake a utility easement on a development or something. We keep miscellaneous funds there for GRP to help with engineering needs. There's a lot of miscellaneous things we keep. That's where our invoices to Dickinson Wright, our legal counsel, go to. So there's a lot of moving pieces in that line item that can cause those fluctuations. But one of the things we will do between now and final budget is dig back into look at specifically the labor negotiations and how much money we want to or anticipate needing to put there. Ryan and I and Zach, our union steward, have had some conversations as far as procedural conversations about taking a little different approach this next go around. So we don't know exactly what impact that'll have on the budget yet, but did want to note that. I will note under employee pensions and benefits, under the employee benefits and other compensation, second line down, employee pensions and benefits, you'll see almost a $200,000 increase in that line item. That includes $150,000 of additional contributions over and above our standard MERS contributions to put towards that surplus division. That kind of puts us somewhere in the 10 to 12 year funding strategy. If you remember the graph that I had up earlier, so we put that in there, and that can be that will most likely be a discussion for next board meeting. There's some items that want to get some board feedback on as we present go from a draft budget to a final budget.
Okay.
That's something that I think we put it in there because the board has shared that direction, but to what extent and exactly how we go about funding that unfunded liability, we'll bring that back to the board next month and have a little bit more in-depth conversation. I didn't feel like it would be fruitful to have during a draft budget conversation. Could potentially convolute the issue, and I want to make sure we give that the due attention that it needs. But did want to highlight that it is there. Note that the miscellaneous conference and seminar expenses, we are budgeting an increase. Part of that is we didn't do as much traveling this year, and I will continue to highly encourage staff to participate in conferences and networking opportunities, and We'll continue to encourage the board to participate as much as possible, but included in this is the anticipation of participating in the Lyman Rodeo again next year, or the what do they call it, Light Up Navajo, or the Navajo Nation, some sort of conference or seminar type expense, whether it's rodeo or the Navajo thing. So that's an increase there. And then we'll get towards, well, we'll get to the bottom line. We'll stop with, actually I'll stop with operating income. As you can see, a slight reduction over our where we're projected in, and a slight reduction from our budget. But if you go back to 2021 actuals, we're staying very much on course with the last few years, so no big deviation there. Going on to pilot, I like this number because it shows our growth. It trickles our anticipated contributions just over that $400,000 mark in pilot payments to the city. So I think this year we're going to fall just a little bit short of our pilot budget, but that the spring could ramp things up and we could make that up pretty close. But we're going to come very close to hitting that number, and then next year we do anticipate that number to actually grow a little bit more as we fine tune our revenue numbers. But then when you get all the way down to net income, budgeting and just under a $560,000 net income, which is a reduction over our current fiscal year projected and budgeted, but very much in line with past years. And there's still some unknowns that I think will change that, and that does also include the $150,000 in additional contributions that are currently budgeted to the pension. So you factor that in, and it's very much a pretty consistent year-over-year look at things. Included in your packet were some graphs. As you can see, very much no giant fluctuations up or down across the board. Pretty much very, very consistent.
Actually, on the
Yep.
graph, so the thing that kind of jumped out to me is that the operating revenue and operating expenses, the blue and the green, remain parallel, right?
Mhm.
So we'd expect to see the same, like, net income overall, but net income went down a bit. And I think the difference was the sale of the property, right? That's
Sale of the property and then the additional pension funding as well. But yeah, last year we were anticipating selling that property, which would have brought the red dot for,
the bond.
or no, I'm sorry, yeah. And we manage as,
Because I think the pension stuff's part of the operating, right? Expenses.
does it fall above or below? I don't remember. It falls above, I believe. Yeah, it falls above, so it hits in operating income.
So our operating, we kind of managed to keep it parallel with our in revenue, which is good, that we're not, diverging, but, or converging, I guess, is
Yeah.
the worst. But then, yeah, just when I saw that because this is the first thing I looked at, then I went back and looked through the table, but then I was like, well, why would our net income decrease if we're keeping up? But I think it's that, the difference is about 100,000, and I think that was,
I'll say sale of the property was,
Yeah,
we were
more or less.
budgeting for that. I'll provide an update. We're closer and closer to realizing that
Yeah.
$100,000, so. But yeah, and we
but like the parallel parks you saw in 2021, it wasn't quite as parallel, and that's why we had a bit of a decrease in our net income there.
yeah.
So overall, I still think we're doing pretty well to keep that parallel trend.
Yeah, and when you look big picture, everything's kind of moving in concert together, which is what we'd want. We're not seeing, like you said, we wouldn't want our income, our operating revenues to increase and our net income to decrease, and them diverge there, and we wouldn't want them to converge, at the top end of things either. You want those operating revenues and operating expenses to kind of move together. But yeah, very, very much a pretty consistent year without, with those minor kind of fluctuations. All right, so capital budget, want to outline a few things. Want to highlight one of the big, big change in the capital budget is no IPA payments, not the beer IPA investment or installment purchase agreements. But no more debt payments that have been hitting the capital budget. Those get satisfied this year. But a big change is the capital equipment. In years past, when we didn't have supply chain issues and we weren't looking so far out in the future, we would budget about $40,000. We would budget $40,000, and we stayed pretty close to that. We've already committed far more than $40,000 just in the transformer order that you all authorized November, and then the transformer order that you authorized today. We've got some meters that are on order as well, so we have some funds that are already allocated, but that's about a $90,000 increase in our capital equipment. So that was a big deviation, and we did build some additional padding in there because we know that there will be other items that come up. We're a lot of planning in that piece. We're needing to upgrade all of our access control key swipes at every facility. That's a pretty. We've already been in discussion with vendor on that's doing a camera replacement for us. That's in this budget. Vehicle replacement fund. I outlined some changes in the vehicle replacement fund, and next month I can provide an updated plan. But that number is going to ultimately fluctuate every year, and we're planning on taking at least an annual review of that because the chipper that was budgeted for this year is far more expensive than originally anticipated. Back when the plan was developed, we're learning quite a bit about that purchase and what we need to spend to meet our needs. And Ryan's on top of that, and he shared a video of a unit that we use that definitely would be a major step back. And part of it's we need to make sure we invest in what we need to meet our needs. But we're planning on buying a bucket truck next year. Well, I'm typically used to bucket truck orders are 300-day lead times. We're over 2 years at this point. So Ryan's actively, I think I got an email that I saw from this afternoon, Ryan's actively identifying what bucket truck we need so we can get an order in. But the order, the payment might not actually occur till fiscal year 25. Crazy. I mean, just absolutely crazy. But we continue to fluctuate and adjust. Ryan has added a few items to it that are very much great additions to our equipment fleet. But I can present an updated copy of the vehicle replacement fund next month. As far as facility improvements, this roof directly above us is leaking pretty bad. The thaw this year resulted in we lost a desktop. We lost one whole person moved out and decided they didn't know. The desk got damaged, and Ron actually is working out of the Energy Center right now. But Ryan's office was water just pouring down the walls, and the roof most likely needs replaced. We haven't quite got a quote, but we they're working on a quote right now. Then there's some other big project is now that we've got an IT hub down at the Energy Center. Casey's worked real hard on working with Ryan on standby power needs out there. We've had discussions on the big diesel generator, and Casey gave a presentation and some information on cost effectiveness of different routes to get power there, and has found a really good I think he's identified, or they've identified, a great approach to meet our needs there. I didn't know how much involvement. I just know the end result was me going, I like it. I know you guys work together on most things down there.
I didn't think I'd ever see the generation department buying a standby generator when you have two of them sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
This is
Overkill.
This is a small generator, just for essential needs at the facility. But yeah, I think island mode was the hope, and to be able to use the original, the two jet turbines down there. But the hurdles that we're going to face to actually be able to operate in island mode, you just can't black start those units. We're not. The laundry list of challenges to overcome are very lengthy. But yeah, it
It make me smile and
I was gonna say, yeah,
because I'm like,
it's a chuckle.
there's Casey.
But another project that we want to tackle this year is just some upgrades. The substation right now has a chain with some guy guards on it. That we want to update that. We want to make it a little safer. Put up a little more secure. We're investing in cameras out there, updating the cameras out there. So, there's just some smaller projects, and then some IT hardware replacement. The big one, big project is looking at providing a redundant feed to the other side of town. And Ryan and I had some lengthy discussions, and the plan I think right now is to try and bid that work out this spring. To a contractor, because that's a project, the overhead piece of it's going to take contractors to do, and Ryan can elaborate on that. But the plan is to kind of bridge that project across 2 fiscal years and take care of it in the 2023 construction season. We're a little concerned what inflation is going to do to the price of that project. So trying to take some manageable chunks, and the hope is that if we bid it out a year in advance, contractors give us very favorable pricing. If we let them get in there in a soggy time, it's going to be pretty much all along the road. Ryan has taken on to control some costs. I think he's wanting, I know we talked about it, taking on a little bit more in-house and handling some of that. So that $400,000 for that doesn't quite get us a full redundant feed, but we'll be able to piggyback off of it next budget year, the 2024 budget year, and use the first half of the 2024 budget to take on wrapping up the actual redundant feed part, and then incorporating some additional work. So we're not necessarily splitting one project up over 2 years. We're splitting up like 1 3/4 project over 2 years. So we will actually do more over 2 years than just get a redundant feed. We'll Ryan will strategically look at where we can go ahead and proceed with some voltage conversion over there. And then also, it includes a new capacitor for circuit 207, which that circuit's creating some imbalances on power factor, but that's a $20,000 piece of that project. And then the $45,000 at the bottom is just miscellaneous minor projects, and then projects that customers call and say, hey, I need this service. I need you to make these upgrades for this service or something. And while we're there, I want to make sure that we budget enough to give Ryan the flexibility to really leverage his skill set and all the guys' skill set to maximize the return on investment when we're in an area. So that number's not necessarily tied to specific projects, but I know Ryan's got ideas as far as little smaller projects that we can take on too that never quite rise to the level of, hey, we need to budget for it and plan a year out, but we're in the area, let's take these 4 spans that are overhead and they're constantly trimming them out. We've got money in the budget, let's just underground that section. Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
That sounds really good. There's a lot of those spots.
Yeah. And Ryan's got great ideas. I mean, we talk daily, and I learn something every day, and he shares an idea of how to make things better. And we, as a company, everybody really embraces the commitment to continual improvement, and that right there is essentially just a tool to make sure we've got funds there to take advantage of that mentality and approach from everybody.
When we start doing Monroe and Washington, does that impact your budget as far as your lines, replacing some of the poles?
Some of them. There's some that are gonna be really close to the sewer main, it sounded like, in a couple spots, but should be fairly easy to just relocate and switch around some stuff, and won't be too bad. Doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, 'cause there's only 3 trees, I think, Dan said coming down
Yeah.
through there, so.
Yeah, he's probably we're gonna work with them and remove those trees when it gets closer to the actual project time, but he wants to delay taking them out now because it could be next season before the construction happens potentially on that road, so doesn't want them to get cut out now and sit there.
Yeah, before it will actually be finished, it's the USDA is where we're getting the money from, and there's a glitch in the giddy up, I guess. USDA took what we sell to the townships as far as water and sewer rates and just assumed that was in the city. And there was a decrease in the money, and now they're re-looking at it. It'll all get worked out in the end, but probably half of Monroe will get done this year, and then the rest will all get done in the next year. And if you've seen the Vector trucks over there that are cameraing too, that's because now when we did the underground, when we found out what we had, now we're looking at all of our side streets to see which ones we can mill and pave, but we don't have to tear up. So it's $164,000 to do it, but it's good money spent because
Right.
we might find a problem we didn't even know we had. So,
And the last comment I'll make from a budget is, if you'll notice the delta between capital budget and total cash available, this budget, as it sits now, grows our cash by about $80,000, and which is about 3.5 days of operating cash, and we'll be looking at that very closely with UFS this year when we do our cost of service study. What do we need to? What's a 5-year plan? But I think if we can grow, as long as we don't end up with an immediate need, we can grow just a few days cash every year for the next 5 years. It'll keep us north of that 120 mark, which is by policy. It's a great number. Rating agencies like to see 90 days. Your 3 major credit rating agencies like to see about 90 days of operating cash. So to stay north of that 120 is a good number to be at. But at the same time, we don't want to grow cash just to have cash on hand. At some point, you end up getting on some radars if you sit on too much cash. So balancing that is very important. But that's the last note and comment that I had on budgets. And again, this is just in draft form. So I anticipate a conversation again next month at the board meeting to get some more board feedback. I will say one thing that is not included in the budget right now is any additional funds towards the engine room. And I think we can incorporate them in, but when I looked at all of our priorities, and the 4 major priorities were fund the pension, fund the equipment replacement fund system improvements, and grow cash. I don't think I got out of my order that I had them written down earlier. In that one kind of, without board direction, I didn't see an area to say that money would be better spent on the engine room at this point. We made great progress, and again, I think we can spend the next couple months looking at what do we think it would take, because I'd like to finish out that last piece. If you've not been in there, the guys did a great job pouring most of it. We got one big pit, but it's the most challenging section and most costly section of that floor to repair, and without an immediate need for that, is it worth paying the premium that we'll have to pay during our current economic times to get that wrapped up? And again, this will be a conversation that will be included next month as we kind of look at getting some board feedback on changes between the draft budget and the final budget, because it would be great to have that wrapped up and done with, but there's some challenges there.
Yeah, it's not a high priority, and there's nothing calling us to that space, like we've got to use it for something, it's just, I think it's okay for us to wait till we're inspired by something.
And more than anything, I'm nervous about what it's gonna cost. And what's the premium, labor shortages, everything's going up. It's probably gonna involve quite a bit of steel decking or I don't know what all materials, but it's not just
another-
it's not an easy fix to replace that last section. You have to maintain that void under there. It's not like you can just say, dump sand in there, fill it in, and pour concrete across it. That's where all of everything drains to. It's where our access to under there is. We need to maintain that space, but exactly how do we maintain that, and how much of a premium are we going to pay to maintain it? And it is definitely heightened with our current pricing issues. So, I would, like I said, we all would like to have it done and wrapped up and make a heck of a place to have a company get together. But it's a long, long way from being finished. So,
Well, and that's been tore up quite a while. I'm trying to find them in pictures when the year we pulled everything out of there.
It's 2018.
Was it 2018? April or something? There's snow on the ground, I remember that.
I don't like to hear April snow.
It's happening. We just wait.
I understand, and
It happens, yeah.
I've been good with the winter. I've been good with the winter all winter. April snow will make me sour.
We've had snow in May too, so.
That will make me really sour. But that was the last I had in terms of comments on the draft budgets and draft operating and capital budgets.
Yeah, my main comment was what I talked about with the chart, and so that's like Tina or, and you guys have any comments?
Nope.
On the budget?
I thought generally looked good. If we touch on kind of the retirement plan and some of those other
Yeah.
things that were more detailed discussion, if we touch on those at some point,
Yeah, and that's why I'd like to come back next month and have a follow-up discussion where we could dive into some of these. We took board direction and in big picture, but not, how's this going to boil down to the nuts and bolts and dollars on a piece of paper? And that's something that we'll definitely want board feedback on and want the board to have a say in what that ultimate budget looks like.
No further comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the draft budget. Send on to the city.
so motioned.
Supported?
All right, we have a motion and support to approve the draft budget. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None, so that's approved. So now we're on to item F.
All right. I took board feedback from last month and incorporated it in there and tried to balance everything. I did keep the voltage conversion projects in there just kind of as a reference. I thought it was a really good idea. It was a struggle to scrap them and wanted to just kind of move them to a separate section. That way they're there. We're not abandoning them there, kind of based on your feedback of, hey, there's still value in acknowledging them, but I don't see, a year-to-year, action item on it, but I do see a lot of value in saying, hey, here were projects identified, let's keep them in mind, and I try to make a note that we're gonna, evaluate the risk matrix every year, voltage conversion plan every year, and kind of incorporate that. And then, there's a lot of discussion on, if we do a facilitated strategic plan update, this whole document will get a lot of attention because this is kind of that, the gray area between board and staff and, when are things handed over from board direction to staff execution. So using a facilitator to help guide the impact of this will be useful. But with that, I'll answer any questions, but we had a very lengthy discussion last month, so I won't belabor any of this.
Who wasn't here last month? 'Cause I thought a couple, yeah, I remember a couple of you guys weren't here.
That is true. Yeah.
So, in particular, I'm curious if you guys had any thoughts or input on the changes, or just any inputs in general that you guys had that you didn't have a chance to make last time.
Nope.
No,
None?
I didn't have anything. There were a few down back when we were in the governance training, but kind of maybe addressed with Charlie at a separate time, so I was okay with the changes that were made.
The only thing that I've been concerned with, and this dates back to, what's his name, Steve, that left
That
us.
guy.
You still mad at
That
him?
ditched us. The pension, that's really important to me to get that monkey off our back. That's the thing, so I know that I had a conversation with Casey, and Casey says, well, that's not the new landscape, don't worry about the pension, offering that's not a new thing, blah, blah, blah. But, that's still important to me.
Well, it is high on the priority list, so.
So I love that it's there.
Yeah,
And I'd like to.
And
wrap it up.
I definitely would recommend a slower pace approach than was originally presented. I think having it fully funded by fiscal year 2026 would put a tremendous strain on our ability to invest back in the system. And things have changed since that was presented.
Yeah.
Campbell retiring, it made a big change.
It did. We didn't see that coming.
Yeah, we were supposed to have quite a bit of debt-free power come out of that. Well, we've got the debt-free power, but we're immediately collecting about half of our, what we were paying, about $22,000 a month in debt payments on that. Well, now we're paying $10,000 in capital call for decommissioning expenses. So, not all of that money was truly freed up. We've got inflationary pressures that we're facing that nobody could have predicted 4 years ago. It'll be a little more cautious approach and a little slower, but our liability is capped, and it's about getting it to a manageable level. And kind of worst case scenario is MERS requires it to be fully funded by 2040. And we'll be paying out pension payments to retirees long beyond 2040. So, it's about getting it to a manageable level, getting to a better position, getting our funding percentage much higher, and just getting in a more comfortable place with it. So, yes, as you could, with the budget, we throw $150,000 extra at it right now, and again, that'll be that number's subject to change based on future board conversation, but we took that priority and elevated that priority in the budgeting process.
Thank you.
Something just popped into my mind. It's close enough to the topic, I believe. The landfill gas expenses. What were we gonna do? Were we gonna do something different?
I'll touch base on the manager's report.
Okay.
Because it's a, and we may take some of that offline, because we could get way into the weeds. And
Right.
it gets way in the weeds. I'm happy to do it, but may not be the best for the board meeting.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll touch on it in my manager's report.
Okay.
Thank you. So do we have to have a motion to,
Formally
To
adopt.
approve.
Yeah.
Yeah, David. Last thought, something? Said, entertain a motion if anyone wants to.
So supported?
I'd like to
Or
motion.
motion, no, so,
So you did motion
No.
that?
so,
Motion.
what am I supposed to say?
Adoption of updated strategic plan.
So that's your motion.
That's my motion.
Okay, supported.
All
Okay.
right.
See, it all looks easy on TV.
It really does.
All right, so we have a motion and support for the adoption of the updated strategic plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Okay,
Thanks for taking that update.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
There was a lot of discussion last time. Yes.
That was a good discussion.
Yeah. It was good stuff.
All right.
All right, item G.
All right, I think this will be a quick closed session, but just for procedural standpoint, going into closed session does require a justification and a roll call vote. But the motion should state that, that you're making a motion to go into closed session to discuss an amendment to the working agreement, collective bargaining agreement as outlined in Michigan constitutional law. Something to that effect. You just got to give a reasoning. So, but it is to discuss an amendment to our working agreement with the union.
So entertain a motion to discuss the working agreement amendment.
I'll make a motion for us to go into closed session for the reason of the working agreement amendment.
And I'll support.
We have a motion and support. We can let's move the roll call vote.
All right. Vice Chair Straubing,
Yes.
Board Member Cadwalder,
Yes.
Board Member Crawford,
Yes.
Board Member Fonger.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead and reset this. So we will go into closed session at 7:48. All right. Back on. We are out of closed session.
So we're back in open session. And I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the amendment to the working agreement.
Will motion to approve the amendment to the working agreement that we discussed in closed session.
Support.
In fact, we have motion and support. All those in favor of the approval signify by saying aye.
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 And not opposed.
All right. We just made it through 7 action items in 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I can include a closed session.
That's
Yeah,
all.
So far, so good. Right, so in section 6,
All right.
informational items.
I'm going to roll through these. Again, it's
Yay.
very similar and to what you've seen. Again, sales are trending very much with the rest of the year. We're running ahead, continue to run ahead of previous year, but that's to be expected. Continue to see growth. You see some minor fluctuations in overall sales on a monthly basis at the residential level, but that's going to be very much largely determined by weather. But with that, I will roll on to, again, just some of the graphs that you're used to seeing. Stop at cash. Cash was pretty stable. I'm really happy with this number because included in February was a large payment to pay off one of our debts of I signed a $170,000 check or so. So that was a cash hit.
That
And
feels good.
yeah. It doesn't feel good
That
to
feels
sign the
good.
check, but it feels good to
Just
see the
it's
debt bounce.
gone.
Yeah, no, that it won't bounce. I
Knowing
like
that
that.
will bounce, yeah.
Yeah, but
Very good, Daniel.
Cash has been very stable this year, and we're very hopeful that April, May, June, typically you see some cash growth in those months. So feeling good about that.
Good.
Again, this was an update to, oh man, my computer bouncing all over the place. This was another update on the aging analysis, and really if you focus on that very bottom number, the bottom section, very small portion of our aging is really exposed to that bad debt level at this point.
That-
Yeah, that's tough. We may tweak that. It does not, yeah. This was a new graph. Again, this will gain more, meaning over time as we see trends. But again, you did see a jump in the balance of inactive accounts, and that's kind of the number I like to pay attention to, just because that's ultimately what ends up subject to write-off. But then, you're also seeing the delinquent balance, so the amount of money that comes up at the disconnect service order phase is in a good spot. So again, this will.
Despite the jump, it's still going down.
Well, those are two different pieces. So the delinquent.
Both of them are going down despite having.
Oh yeah, yes,
Going
yeah,
up.
yes. I hear you saying yes. So we're
It's
at
only a year, but still, it's a.
yeah. They
encouraging trend.
They do a great job, office staff, managing this and being proactive. I will remind the board that we just entered into our final month of not being able to disconnect because we don't participate in the LEAF program. Disconnects will resume April 15th.
What are the numbers on the right then?
Those reflect the customer count, the residential customer count.
The green line.
The green line is on the right, the dollars are on the left. So the blue line and red line correspond to the left.
Quantity of meters.
Yeah, and the right is quantity of meters.
Gotcha.
We can clarify. We'll clarify some of this. It's all work in progress.
All right.
So it's residential meters.
Yeah.
Not customers, but
Yes.
close.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, there's not that many with multiple meters, are there?
But there could be, yeah. So, again, this graph's just fun because it's all over the place, but you get to see seasonal changes, a long look back.
I'm kind of curious on that one, what the standard deviation is. It's, those what are those called? High bars or something?
Oh, yeah, where you got a top bound, yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting that it's becoming increasingly peaky, or, it seems to be getting increasingly more erratic, right?
The delta between the high and the low
Yeah.
is growing. And that's interesting because
But I think we talked before about, is that a weather thing? Has the weather just been more peaky in those last few years?
I don't-
Or is that just, you said it's really interesting.
The climate change science says when it's hot, it's going to be hotter, and when it's cold, it's going to be colder, and we're experiencing that. So,
And I don't
Yeah,
know what happened between 15 and 16, but there was a pretty big jump in that top peak, kind of July of 15 to July of 16. There was a bigger jump from July to July there. And that's why Ryan, Casey, I'm kind of leaning towards you
For
guys.
me, but I remember a lot of growth at their location.
Oh, when
When
they,
they poured that with the new building?
Honestly, I've heard
That
about
was
it.
before 16, wasn't it? Yeah, it was early 15, I think.
Wow.
So I guess that could be that.
Wow.
yeah, it's just, well, in particular, just looking at the first 3 years roughly,
There's
2 or
less.
3, there's just not a whole lot of fluctuation. All of a sudden, they can get these huge spikes.
And I gotta believe that's
Can-
an
then
well,
a big
can
dip
we
in the
get
two.
average daily temperature integrated with that?
I'm not gonna make any promises here, but we can look into it.
Or an average monthly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we talked about that before, about you were saying how somebody wanted to get like just quick weather on top of our.
I'd love-
demand and
yeah.
see.
I'd love to look at weather normalized. It takes a lot of analytics to do to integrate, to weather normalize your load. And quite frankly, it's above my ability.
Just copy consumers.
Yeah. Well, even you don't have to necessarily normalize, just get the weather on against us. So
Yeah,
you kind
I'm
of-
saying, if you can-
a qualitative comparison, not.
Yeah. I like
Yeah, because I
that.
know you mean about, if you want to try to say, well, let's take the weather out of this, and what would this demand look like? Well, that's hard.
I use it,
It all depends when people are using it and.
we used a previous employment, we had a rate consultant that had a computer programmer on staff that was just, he was on the autism spectrum and
Most
could,
doctors are
could-
autistic.
he could talk to the rate consultant. He said, you give him a task and the analytic skills
Yeah.
that he brought to the
Just
table, but he was able to create macros
I bet. I
in
bet.
software to really, he truly weather normalized your load, and it was interesting. That's what made me think of it. I wish I had that skill set, but I don't think I could justify paying what we probably paid him to do it.
Believe though, there's even a website out there that has lists heating degree
Oh, yeah.
days by region or even by.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's where you got to pull it from is manipulate heating and cooling degree days
Yeah.
to try and take that.
Yeah. I mean, even if we could just
factor
get
out.
that one, just a monthly temperature
Yeah.
average, and
We'll look into it. I'm sure that we can find it.
No,
Just
probably has.
oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure the
Yeah.
data's
Yeah.
out there. It's just more than anything, it's a matter of finding the time to have somebody take 8 years worth of data and plot it on a graph. Especially the last couple.
Only put 100 data points.
Yeah. And unfortunately, since
Used to be 10,000.
since Christmas, or maybe goes back to Thanksgiving, I don't think we've had a fully healthy staff for a week straight. But we'll put it on there. I
even
think
if
it's
you
a
have
great
to draw
idea.
it with crayon,
Yeah.
I don't care, Charlie. Just
Man, I got a 7-year-old. How accurate do you want to know? No, I see a lot of value, and we'll add it to the list of some enhancements. I just don't want to overpromise that next month it'll be there,
Right.
and then I go back and I get yelled at. No,
That's okay.
Oh, oh, yeah.
but no, I think there's a lot of value there. It'd be very interesting to see, does that load how much does the load grow above what's weather normalized, or at least graphically, can you draw any correlations there?
Mhm.
So, I'll move on to outage report, and we weren't able to pull the original report. Ron was on vacation, and he was very busy wrapping up some things before he left, and he's usually the one that pulls this. But we thought there were no outages, but there were no outages in February, so there's no report to
And
pull.
we even had some wind.
Well, I'm going to say, Ryan, do you want to touch base on that?
Oh, that's just been this
after
month.
February. Yeah, February we were good. We didn't have any problems, no bad weather, no wind that was really significant, but slightly into March we did have some wind and a couple small outages, but not anything too bad.
Yeah, it was very minimal. I don't remember how many total customers ended up out in the windstorm, but it blew hard.
We'll find out next month. Okay.
Yeah, it was not, we were not impacted heavily by that. The system held up great. The guys responded quick with everything that did come up, and
But the worst thing, in my opinion, is the banner got its butt kicked over Main Street.
Ooh, I
And
bet it did.
we're gonna make sure that we're all playing together and take that down if it's gonna get over 40 mile an hour, because the wires
over there and
actually
pull it.
broke, the banner got ripped, it was pretty bad.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we're just gonna do better with that, taking it down. It doesn't take long to take it down, even if we have to go up on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, because I don't know if anybody drove through Saturday afternoon this past weekend. It was only a 20 mile an hour wind, and that banner was going nuts. I just think the holes might not be as big as they should be on this one, so that it can allow it to blow through.
Right.
But, yeah, we won't leave it up from now on.
Okay.
I'll roll on
Understandable.
to
Income statement.
income statement. Very much a lot of the same. Had a very healthy month. Operating revenues are continued to come closer and closer to budget, but that does include some mutual aid revenue. Purchase power, again, getting more in line with the budget, but ultimately you go down to operating income. We had a good month, and we're back pretty much in line, 2.5% under budget right now. You go down to net income, and we're tracking ahead of our projected budget at this time. So Income statement is looking very much where we hoped it'd be right now, under budget on quite a few items. But we have a lot of projects too that will hit some of those and close that gap down some. But we are still working through some of the challenges of representing some of this graphically. We thought we might have something to present this month, and got to navigate some scale issues. And
Okay.
there's some different items that are on very different scales, and when you put things on, when you look at a
Well, you might not need the percentages as much if you're gonna see it visually, because then the percentages will be more apparent.
and it's where, like, if you just
But it's
look.
still some things that are small and big.
Yeah, if you look at, oh heck, so I don't remember exactly what I saw. There's just pieces that are, you put everything on one scale, and you got one item that's like, it's tough to discern the differences because.
Yeah,
It
everything's dwarfed by the.
Yeah, but then you've got like purchase power is a big expense, and so if you put purchase power on the same graph as net income, purchase power's, what do we budget, 4.6 million. You put net income budgeted at 650,000 on that same scale, and you start to lose some value there. So we want to make sure that whatever we're presenting provides value. So we're going to keep working through that.
Thank you.
In my head, I had it as a little less complicated until I saw the first version and went, oh yeah, that's a little more challenging.
Okay.
By the way, you do know you're supposed to get that variance on the net income down to within 1%.
We're working on it. No, we're over. We're doing better now.
Oh yeah,
So,
no, like,
yeah.
I think one year Steve had it like under 4%, is all proud that he predicted the budget accurately.
Well, good for him. No.
So we were kind of joking about it, it's like, wow, you really knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're holding us back from doing anything to make sure those numbers hit.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, that's funny. I'll roll on to capital projects. Again, more of the same. It's a couple items I do want to highlight. Solar control panel, that was that $165,000 check we issued. Fully funded that debt. That capital equipment that I mentioned was up about $90,000 this year. We've got $28,000 left hitting that, but that money is all in pending orders at this point. So that'll finish pretty close to right on budget. System expansion, Stony Bluff is moving. They got caught up in the winter and weren't able to pave, so we've not got in Stony Bluff yet. So that'll turn into a spring project. Want to drop down to substation metering and relays, and want to commend Casey, Ryan, the guys, everybody that was a part of that. That project's going to come in way under budget, and the quality of the outcome is not reflective of saving money and cutting corners. They did an amazing job, and we were just able to save money. Part of it was taking some of the labor in-house, and Ryan's guys being able to do some of the work out in the substation yard, efficiency. Really, from a material standpoint, the materials came in pretty close to on budget, so the vast majority of the savings is coming from labor savings. So that's a direct reflection of the awesome work that our guys do. So very proud of that one.
Casey had a great plan. He drew it all up and had the plan. We just helped do it. It was awesome.
Plan
Worked
man.
great.
Yes, Casey definitely exercised his engineering skills, and the plan was well thought out,
Yeah.
well calculated. Every plan has hiccups, but they rode through the hiccups, and there was a lot of planning that went into the work that happened out in the field, in the substation, because I never quite got a grasp on where all the wires needed to be removed and
Right.
put back in service, and how much could you do it ahead of time, and it was a very calculated process. So thank you to both of you and the guys for all the work that you put into that.
You love it when a plan comes together.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And the coolest part is the old communication satellite dish receiver thing is now gone off the old metering building. And that is awesome. That thing drove me nuts.
I bet it did.
Yeah, looking to get in. We had an old copper POTS line, phone line in there that was costing us $80 or $90 a month for one phone line, and that's out of there. Everything's modern. It added additional protection that ITC, the transmission company, had requested, and updated the meter. Really, it was a great project. We're very happy with how it turned out, and happy to have both transformers back in normal operation too. So I'll never feel good when always a little uneasiness when you start messing with a couple of the most critical pieces of equipment. But you know, when you do preventative maintenance, when you pay attention and you plan for it, it's really not a concern at all. It's just I'll always get uneasy a little bit when you're messing with a substation transformer. But again, the work was planned to minimize how much time it was there, how many times it was out of a normal state. So again, great project. Continued to invest in the dock addition, which was not budgeted this year. And that project's going to get wrapped up yet this year, right? This fiscal year?
Yep. Hope so.
Hope so. Thanks. All right. I'll dive into the manager's report. So this is a little change in that normally the MPPA board meeting falls the day before our board meetings, but with the move in board meetings, it was actually last week. Got an interesting review of an update process on how MPPA is updating their credit reporting that they do, a credit report card. They really are trying to align how they evaluate members based on the three big credit rating agencies. So that was very interesting. To your question about the landfill gas project, there was some interest in potentially converting that to renewable natural gas, but there's some pretty major challenges that we would have to overcome. And while it is our most expensive power that we buy from a portfolio standpoint, there's some challenges to try and from a PR standpoint. Eliminating renewables is probably a major challenge. It's not something that we take lightly in terms of potentially eliminating a renewable resource from our generation mix. And then there's some privileged information as far as the actual deal that was proposed that I can't necessarily share, but are a challenge that we would have to overcome. I don't have a good feel on what the probability is that anything comes about from that, but the renewable natural gas market is in flux right now. There's a much bigger push. If you saw, Swiss Lane Farms just entered into a deal with Consumers Energy for a biodigester, and they're not planning on burning the gas that's produced from the biodigester. They're planning on injecting it into the natural gas pipeline and mixing it with their natural gas, and using it for its methane value, not its power producing value. So we're monitoring that pretty close, but we do have the natural end to some of our landfill gas contracts is over the next few years. We have different contracts that'll fall off over probably getting close to the next 10 years. Starting in 3 or 4 years, they start incrementally falling off. But it was good to hear a proposal. Another thing that we talked about is how we want to handle renewable energy credits, the RECs that come off of that, because we don't have a compliance requirement to retire renewable energy credits at this time, but we generate them here. And we leverage an arbitrage deal where some of these units are actually in a different we're in MISO, which is our regional transmission operator. Some of these are registered in other RTO networks, so the RECs are worth more elsewhere. We sell them in other states where they're registered and then buy the equivalent MyRECs from those proceeds and just leverage an arbitrage deal to maximize the value of those. So I've just had some good conversation about how we want to continue handling that. On a less than fun note, we did get notified that we would be required to put up a $71,000 capital contribution for our energy services project with MPPA. That increased our working capital to close to $200,000 that they're sitting on. That's registered as an asset, or it's an asset on our books or on the balance sheet. It's still an asset that we book, but it is restricted at that point, and that's just to remain in compliance with the service agreement that we have with MPPA for the energy services. Essentially, that working capital is only leveraged in the event of a default or some extenuating circumstance, but it's based on our highest monthly expense from the previous year in the energy services. But again, direct result of increased market power prices. Give an update on the MMEA. So I attended the legislative rally in Washington, D.C. As a board member for MMEA. Had a really good conference, great networking opportunity. Included in your packet, I included a resolution that was passed at the Legislative and Resolutions Committee, which is essentially the body formed within APPA that guides APPA's position on issues. Essentially, what stance is MPPA? What stance is APPA going to take on behalf of its 2,000 plus members? Included in there was a good resolution in terms of capturing all the challenges that we face if the federal government institutes some sort of green standard or renewable portfolio, some sort of environmental standard, carbon standard. So wanted to just include that. It also was a very, very lengthy conversation, from my understanding, one of the longest discussions at the L&R. It was there were some minor changes that were made. There were a lot of amendments proposed in a very formal setting. It was very interesting because they have a parliamentarian there to guide the process, and it's very formal. But it was interesting. Did most of our meetings with our legislators virtually. Met with Peter Meyer, Congressman Meyer virtually. He was actually in Grand Rapids and we were in D.C.
Right.
So it was odd, but came back and met with, had a meeting with Stavinoff and Congresswoman Stavinoff and Congressman Peters' staff when we got back, our two senators. So had a really good meeting there. Less in person than we cared for, but it was great networking opportunity. They brought in Senator Manchin from West Virginia to discuss energy at a breakfast, and that was really good to hear from him. He's got a very unique approach, and he's been known to buck the norm a little bit. So it was good to hear from. But it was a good trip, and as a board member, MMEA reimburses Light and Power for all of my expenses. So that's a win for Light and Power.
That is.
Rolling on in, we're going to set a record here. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask. A lot of effort and time's been put into getting prepped for the large grow operation out at the Admiral building. You were fighting the frost for quite a while and got creative and stopped by yesterday, and the concrete pad is poured. Busted through all the frost. Concrete pad is poured, conduits are in the ground, and I believe the plan is to deploy a transformer in preparation for put a little fire in their wire soon. Safety update. Ron was on vacation. Didn't have anything notable from a safety standpoint. I know that they demoed a wood chipper and took the opportunity to refresh on safety related topics there. And as always, safety is paramount to everything that we do. So again, I highlight a lot of projects that are getting closer and closer to officially wrapped up in the manager's report. Have moved some additional IT infrastructure over there. Still working through technology challenges, not technology, just vendor challenges with the time of use billing, and that's moving along. Had to cancel a meeting today due to illness, but still working on the information handshake between our AMI vendor and our billing vendor. Cybersecurity training. If you have not finished your cybersecurity training that was assigned to you, please do so. Yeah, it's rather, we can always extend it, but and we're looking at as we dive into some cybersecurity, there's some alternatives that could potentially take that requirement off the board. If we never connect your tablets to our network and they always remain isolated, but
Mine is,
yeah, you could use the guest network, but I don't know. It's great. It's good training, and
I should give you back my iPad then.
You got an I. Craig,
I should give
help.
it back to you.
Help, Craig.
What's going on?
Catch up with the times and help us be a premier utility and use your electronic device.
It's good. Nice.
Yeah, and speaking of cybersecurity, cybersecurity training, our website was hacked this week.
Really? It wasn't my fault.
No, it was redirected to a Canadian pharmacy trying to sell a product geared towards men.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Rogan. That's what I heard.
It's out there. We've shored up that process and continue to shore up that process. Staffing, obviously Matt's here. Very pleased to announce that we have hired 2 full-time ground workers. Matt and Steven are going to be great additions to the team. Thrilled to have both of them, and I think they're thrilled to be here. I know Matt is. He told me that at least today. He's either lying to me or he really is genuine. I think I'm leaning towards he's genuine. He's committed 2 hours and 40 minutes to joining us here tonight. So
I'm excited. I'm from the community, grew up here. I'm raising my family here. My wife works right here in downtown Lowell. So I mean, when I went and talked to Ron about it, I didn't know it was a starting green position, and I had long talks to my wife about the commitment I would have to make, long nights and storm work and all that stuff it might take. She's like, go for it. If that's what you really want, you can work through it. It's not a problem. It's your career, You gotta do what's right.
I love it.
I like helping people. I like seeing people, and we're cutting trees. So some of the guys are so happy they come outside, and it's cool. I really enjoy it. So I'm very happy to be here.
And that you get a sense of why we hired him. Matt came in and that connection to the community, and really aligns with what we do here at Lowell. Unique to Lowell Light and Power, unique to Public Power, and clearly he was a fan of Public Power before he even knew it. It just was a great alignment, and we're thrilled to have you, Matt. Thrilled to have Steven as well. Other projects that we're wrapping up and making progress on: soil gas mitigation. Still working on final requirements to wrap that up, but that's wrapping up. Engine room. If you haven't If you didn't stop by on your way out, poke your head in the engine room. It's got a floor, which is more than we can say for a long time. So very pleased with that progress. Want to stop just a minute. The power cost adjuster, been working, power cost adjustment factor in our billing component. We've been working with UFS to update and modernize that a little bit to gain some alignment with how it needs to be to position us for continued forward curves showing market volatility in power supply. So I would anticipate bringing that to the board next month for an introduction and potential adoption, but just kind of modernizes that, and again, we've been working very closely with UFS on that item. Equipment replacement plan, we touched on this. It's full of challenges with lead times, but would anticipate requesting board authorization later this year to approve purchasing a truck that'll be paid for sometime in the future, potentially as late as fiscal year 2025.
It's weird that you treat a truck purchase like a construction project. You know, in terms of like planning. And
Yeah.
Let's plan our order for this time, so that 2 years we'll get it. You know, it's like,
Right.
They don't even have a demo that we can look at. We had to ask them who has a truck with the boom on it, the style model that we want, which Zeeland has the closest one, so we're sending a couple guys over there on Friday to actually put eyes on it and mess around with it a little bit just to make sure that is what we want before we commit to something, because we kind of need to see it and
That's
use it. And,
understandable.
yeah.
it's a sort of close plan. I mean,
So we're meeting the sales rep, and Zeeland's already agreed to let us come over there and mess around with it before it goes out to work on Friday morning, and I'll send the two foremans over there so they can ask questions and take a look.
It's about a $250,000 purchase that you've got to make that commitment 2 years out. It's luckily with the equipment replacement fund, we're going to stash those funds away and have it earmarked when it does come in. One thing, I included a Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund flyer in your packet. Really, funds are out there, and it really just want to make sure that if our customers needed sought out that help and needed it, that we were registered and an active participant. So I want to commend the office staff for taking the time to, as a group, learn about it, sign up for it, and with a fairly small customer base, it may or may not be something that ever is used, but if it is, we want to make sure we're there. Really want to highlight this next item. You talk about safety. This is a humongous reduction in our experience modification factor for our workers' comp insurance. We were notified that our experience mods can be reduced from 1.73 to 1.31.
Wow.
And essentially that number is the premium we pay for our specific experience. In the health insurance world, it's reflective of your utilization. But essentially, they took our base rate and said it's now 73% higher because of our 5-year look back. So that 40% reduction in that premium will result in over $8,000 in savings. So that's a direct reflection of the safety culture that we have. Very much appreciate Ron, Casey, Ryan, all the guys. It's something that I know they truly appreciate, and I'm betting Matt could already speak to it 3 weeks in. The focus on safety is a top priority, so I'm very proud of that number and hope to continue in that trend.
So what is the experience modifier like? What does that represent?
So the way your workers' comp is calculated, different job classes have different base rates based on X number of dollars per $100 of salary. So as you can imagine, line work is 5 times more expensive than office work. just because
Of
of the
course.
nature of the work that they do. So I think without having the invoice, the line works about $2.40 per $100 of salary for that group. That gets you your base rate. And then they take your experience modifier, which is a look back, like a 5-year look back to say, how many cases, how much does it cost us over 5 years? And then they adjust. So when they say 1.73, they take our base rate and say, what's 73 no impact is a 1. There's no impact at that.
Multiply the base rate by
By-
1.3.
It's really by, your addition is by 0.73, but yeah, your total rate is 1.73, because it doesn't, I have to look at the invoice, but yeah, that's your premium, essentially your premium that we pay specifically based on ours. So basically a 73% premium over the base rate based on the history that we had. Now, next year when they calculate it, it'll be a 31% increase or premium for our personal Lowell Light and Power experience. And that gets you your total, well, then they get, because it's a pool, we get a dividend based on, overall pool performance. So, but yet when you look at your invoice, you got your base rate, your experience modifier, and then you back out any dividend, and it gets you to your ultimate in value. And I shouldn't quote numbers, but I'm going to anyways. I think our base rate is somewhere close to $14,000 a year. So when you look at overall reduction in our cost, it's a significant reduction. That $8,000 represents a large percentage of our overall workers' comp expense.
Can that number go below 1? Or does it?
I don't know. I've never been in a position where it's been something to enter, where it was, kind of a, but yeah, I believe it can. But I don't want to speak factually on that. I'm focused on continuing to drive down, but I'm hoping that in the next year or two, we can ask that question and set a goal to get below the base rate based on our individual experience.
That's definitely good news.
Yes, oh, it's great. That was very, very happy. I told Julie, thanks for providing good news. I love it. Want to highlight the MPPA Save the Date. Want to highly encourage any board member that can fit this into their schedule to attend. It's their annual stakeholder meeting. This is really a meeting geared towards policymakers in a variety of stakeholders. It's not necessarily directly for staff. This is the one event that they really encourage bringing various stakeholders. I've invited and shared the information with all board members. I've shared the information with Jim, council liaison, shared it with Mayor DeVore and city manager, and asked the mayor if he'd like to share it with the rest of council. But I think at this point we're going to have quite a bit of staff that's going. I'll plan on being there. Casey, Ryan, they can fit into their schedules. Megan and Julie will all be joining. And it's just down the road at Fred Meyer Gardens. So
Rock on. That's easy.
we are the closest utility to the actual event, and I'd love to have a good turnout. But
Right.
last year I only participated once. It was virtually, but to have it back in person and the lineup of speakers. But if you'd like me to register you, or just let me know. The registration's kind of goofy. There is an MMEA spring general membership meeting. You're welcome to attend, but that's really more of a utility staff type of event, which Craig, you joined us for the fall membership meeting. And so you kind of have an idea of what it is, more general business meeting. But again, there is a speaker there that looks very interesting as well. So let me know if I can help register. Other than that, that's really about all I wanted to highlight. Any questions or anything anybody would like me to touch on in more detail? Yeah. There's the speaker. our speakers. So, yeah, it'll be a good event though. But that's all I have for manager's report.
All right, I guess, there's some photos in the, I don't know if now's a good time to go over those. And just,
Oh yeah, and I just kind of put these in for just to keep because I think it's fun to put pictures. I don't have to read any words. But yeah, I put some. This one I will. This was a neat picture.
that's the one I was curious about.
So as part of the soil gas project, we needed to also build a spill containment area per our
SBCC spill protection plan.
that one. But so essentially the plan says you have to, wherever you're gonna, because we're close to the creek there, you have to, anywhere you put transformers, it's gotta be designed to contain the maximum amount of oil that could potentially leak. So doing the math, that hump that's in there across the entire engine room, or across the entire storage area creates the containment area for us. So if where the transformers are stored, if one of them crashes out of it and dumps all the oil, we've got a containment area built. And that little, because the surface area is so big,
Okay.
a half-inch rise creates this ridiculous amount of capacity from a
Square
gallon
area for
capacity.
it? Wow.
Pretty neat.
Pools wide and shallow.
Yeah, it's going to be a very wide and shallow pool, and the hope is, the hope is obviously that you never have a blowout of a transformer there, but things can happen. We do store more of the smaller units in there. The large pad mount units sit on spill containment areas outside. But yeah, I thought this was a very interesting tool, and you can kind of see that's the hump right there, right, Ryan?
Yep.
Yep, I was trying to get oriented, but yeah, that strip down there is the containment area, but everything to the left of it, you can see is actually where the transformers are stored back against that sidewall where the scissor lift is. So it's a big area. Originally, I think they were calling for like a 3-inch speed bump there. We kind of questioned, what are we trying to do? Hold back a Olympic-sized swimming pool? And it was we were able to get it down to something that is fairly negligible. I think you said
You don't even hardly notice it. We
Yeah.
drive over the forklift for trucks. The only thing that
Just
would be a problem, the scissor lift there that you see upper left is, you gotta be careful on how you go over that little hump with that thing, because it could high center or get kind of hung up on it, but as long as you cross it straight, it's perfectly fine. But no big deal. Everybody knows that. We'll be fine with it.
And it's one of the things that you have to do.
So somebody made that nice little form down.
Yeah, they took the idea, so the foreman on the job for Earhart took that to the wood shop and explained to him what he needed, measured the trench, and they just grabbed some scrap wood and built it for him. It's a 3/4 inch high point in the middle, just totally radiused across that area, and it's a screed board, basically. Typically, you would just go straight across that trench with a regular 2x4 or power screed to flatten the concrete off, but we didn't want it flat. We wanted it the 3/4 inches high so that it would create that berm. So, pretty ingenuitive, really.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I like it.
It's a word now.
Yeah, that was everything I had. So I'm gonna put this picture back up while we finish up the meeting. So it's interesting.
All right, so our schedule of meetings is the next one. Just after the photos there.
Yeah, next.
Um,
Check to make sure that.
We did 12, that's our Tuesday, and then the next meeting will be on a Tuesday. Hopefully it'll be even warmer.
Yes.
Then,
Right.
even though it's been so nice so far, I hope not the past couple days, but
As long as it's not snowing at our next board
Yeah.
meeting. If it's snowing for the next board meeting, you're gonna see a very sour
It'll be
meeting.
okay.
apparently my
It'll
first
be
person's
okay.
birthday was canceled for a blizzard.
Oh.
Yeah, my party or whatever, and that was before, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A
Way back.
blizzard, yeah.
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 Like 20 years ago or so, 20,
Yeah.
25 years ago?
There's a factor in that. Okay, so, board comment. Craig, you wanna start?
Well, just looking at March 26th, it is the Lowell Expo. I will be out of town, but Tina will probably be at the Fallisburg Historical Society booth there, so stop by and say hi to Tina.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind it, I'm gonna try to make it to as many as I can. Sometimes I probably can't, but certain topics.
But you know what, it keeps you plugged into,
Yeah,
you know.
that's all, I just like to
Yeah.
know, I got a safe future, or as long as I don't screw up or everything goes good, the guys like me, I do a great job, and all that, it's nice to see, the budget and stuff that you guys want to improve it, so it's just nice to see that, sit back. Because I don't want companies that keep a bunch of secrets, that's not
No.
fun, going to work every
We'd like
day
to be
wondering what's-
transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we pride ourselves in wanting to be an open door, so.
That's just like to see, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And I've noticed through weeks of it, everybody's on the same page.
The more meetings you attend, the more the guys will pick on you.
We don't have to tell them, right? Charlie?
So you
No,
can
I just want you guys to know I'm very committed to
It's-
the whole life power. I'm very excited to learn. You
Thank
guys
you.
have been awesome with everything.
So,
Yeah. Anything else?
Nope.
Dan?
Yeah, same, I guess, welcome to Matt, and then Steven's not here, but also welcome, thanks for coming to the meeting. I don't, so many things are just kind of moving forward, and it's just nice to see, between Casey and Ryan and all the guys and the office staff of finding ways to just keep things moving forward. Don't just manage your report, it's like, yep, that's great, that's great, that's great.
This
That
one?
part sucks, but that's great.
Yeah.
Most of it's pretty great, so.
I get to be the bearer of bad news and good news. This one I felt, I had that same thought wrapping this one up, like, wow, we got a lot of things
Yeah, I feel like
happening.
there's a lot of steps forward. Maybe because I also missed last month, but it's just nice to see, and it's not a surprise though, it's kind of the regular, so just emphasize that.
Okay.
Oh.
Mm.
I wanted to bring up Expo. I'm glad that Craig did, but I wrote it down. For Expo, Low Light Power's usually there, and usually I could see your booth from my booth. So I'll be coming over and checking it out and looking at your programs or your pamphlets. So I was hoping that Emily or Lisa, which I could touch base with them and ask them, what's going to be at your new expo table? You
Yeah,
know,
and I can answer some of that. They
Yeah.
will have a much more detailed answer. But the goal, a lot of the focus now is the new portal. Is trying
Okay.
to educate on the portal, sign up customer, have access to, educate people, have some cards with some instructions. So a lot of it's going to be driven towards payment options, new customer portal, and just general
so
support for
will
public
Emily
power.
and Lisa be there?
I'm not sure who's planning on attending right now.
Okay, okay.
But yes, we will be there, and we're just ordered a new banner, stand-up banner to put at the table, and I'm not sure who's gonna be there, but Low Light and Power will be there.
Okay. Well, because that new portal, that's gonna be a big hitter. And there's gonna be some people that's gonna swing by and wanna see what are those steps to do it. I'm just letting you know that
Perfect.
there's been a few people that's asked me about it, and I laughed and said, well, David handles the portal. David handles that. So that was my flag to you guys, and that, of course, Ryan and Casey, and of course, we got Matt on the scene here. You know, I'm pretty proud of you guys, because I'll tell you what, Matt, working at Lowell Light Power is a game changer. This is an opportunity that I wish I would have had. So I'm not saying that my short person can be a lineman, but I would have loved to have been able to work here and walk home for lunch and come back.
It's literally the most amazing feeling to wake up, go on my thing, get a shower, say bye to my wife, be at work, and then, you know, if I want to, I can have lunch with her. But just seeing people you know in the community know that you're doing something good, you know. And
Yeah.
I've heard, you know, a lot more people now, you know, my closer friends and stuff know I work for Lowell Power, because they see my sweatshirt. They're like, we've never had power outages. You know, a lot of those people don't even, I guarantee a lot of Lowell Power people do not need generators, because everyone I've talked to, you know, power's always on, and if it's out for like 2 or 3 hours, and it can feel good, so.
I didn't put one on my house. I had to remove the generator hookup, but that's most likely because if we got a lengthy outage, I'm probably gonna be here, and it'll be for my wife and kids to deal with,
I
so.
was
Right.
my buddy, that's fine.
Not my problem.
Just
No, I'm
start-
just kidding.
I got my wife all set up before I started here, so she's all good to go now, but, my buddy that lives in West Spring Hills, they've been there 11 years, and he can only really think of 2 times, and the power outage was minimum, it was like 2 times. And he's the last house on West Spring Hills, Cumberland, so, and he
Yeah.
said it's been awesome, so.
So I'm
My
just,
kids-
yeah,
My kids, you were listening here, they complained to me a few years ago that we never lose power. And
Yeah.
They don't
they're
need
like-
to sleep in the living
They're like,
room
how
with
do they, you wanna like
lanterns.
have to walk around at night with flashlights in the
Oh.
house? And I swear, like a few months later, we had the transformer fire.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool, because I thought the transformer,
Right.
like a transformer Autobot.
The worst, because me, at our house, when we lose power, I still have city water, so everything works, just not the lights, you know, I can still take a shower hot, it's natural gas, but it's like, yeah, it's weird.
yeah. So
anyway,
So
sorry.
there you go, Matt. I'm gonna, you know, like I said, this is a game changer, and this is a huge opportunity. And I'm not warning you, but I'm telling you, I just want you to know that I'm plugging for you, and I want to see you retire out of here.
That's my goal.
I want to see you.
I see
Yeah.
Ron, and I've known Ron
Yeah.
my whole entire life, so I've seen him, you know, he's always been home for stuff, you know, he's out running calls, and he was on the fire department, but he was always home with his daughter and stuff.
And
I
Ron
mean,
kept learning. That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
deal, Matt.
And Mark
Ron
and
kept learning.
all the guys here keep telling me how smart Ryan is, and I can't wait to work with Ryan and learn. I can't wait to keep moving up.
This is going to be
There's
great,
a lot
guys.
a lot of good people here that I'm gonna learn a lot of things from, and I think that's cool, you know, especially having people from different states.
Yeah.
You know, talking with Jeremy, you know, the stuff they did out in Oklahoma is just so interesting to compare to what I've been seeing here, so, yeah, I'm very fortunate for this opportunity. I was worried when I did the interviews and didn't get the call, so, but then it all, so.
Thank
Especially
you.
with the HR person, that only works 2 days a week. I had to wait till Monday, or Tuesday or Wednesday, and I had my phone on me at work right away, waiting.
So that's me out. What do you got, Andrew?
Well, also echo the welcome to Matt and Steve. It's good to have you guys on board, and really encouraging to hear your enthusiasm. And yeah, you don't have to come to all these meetings, but you enjoy it. You know, yeah. When Perry's running the meeting, it's going to go till 10 or 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been a quick one.
Yeah, and yeah,
Goodness.
you'll have to learn about ropes apparently. We're talking about learning things from Ryan, but he's
Yeah, he's a master.
Rope tricks, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, Zach's been teaching us, got us today, me and Steve had a little bit of we had to turn our backs and do a couple and try to remember how to do it. But he's got us, I mean, and like you guys were saying with the apprentice program, the lead linemen and all the linemen are, yeah, they put just as much work in as we do, because they're right there testing us every day, you know, giving us a piece of rope or just anything, questions and safety, and yeah. not only to explain the safety, they have to explain why the safety, and just go even more in depth, because we're green, you know?
It makes me feel really good to hear somebody coming on to say that, not everybody that goes to a new job can go into it and say, wow, I'm getting all of this support and everybody's working together, and
Yeah.
it just, when I hear that, I'm thinking, we're doing something right, and
I would love to see.
gosh darn it, we better keep doing it. I
And
think we
know-
will.
I know Stevens from Lowell, he
Yeah, he's a Ricker.
Yeah,
He's-
he got sick, so I didn't get to work with him. Then I went to vacation on our family vacation, and then so I've only worked with him a couple days this week. But I'd like to see him and I be the Mark and Ron, or the ones that've been here for pretty much the whole time. I'm starting a little later than Steven is, but I want to see that. I want to keep the thing going. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see a kid in my shoes from Lowell when I'm their age doing this. I think that'd be sweet.
That's the name of the game.
Yep.
Also, Dan made a comment about you shouldn't be surprised anymore when things keep turning well, but it's still sometimes like, maybe not surprising the word, but like still amazing, right? I think I had made that comment a while back where it's like every meeting I'm like amazed by what the staff's doing, or some idea they had, or something they
Yeah.
proposed, or and just really, I think you had mentioned something about a marketing idea or something that the staff brought to you. Was it about the whole arch or something like that? You said like someone on the staff said, hey, we should try this, and the fact that staff is just kind of doing that and thinking that way on their own.
Yeah.
Everybody's pulling together. And
Right.
that's, and especially, if you look at who all, just the in the office itself, we've had 3 new people come in since I've been here, which has not been that long. And
Right.
they're a cohesive team. You see, pretty much every team, every smaller team is very cohesive. You bring it. We had a lunch today to welcome the new fellas, and just a good group, whether they're in their smaller teams or a bigger team. Everybody really understands. Everybody's got a commitment to Light and Power and making it a better place, better tomorrow than it is today, and that really is fruitful when everybody does the same thing. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's cool to see that you're noticing that too, because that's something I've felt over the past few years. I was like, I keep being amazed, and I shouldn't be anymore, but it's still amazing to see. So, aside from that, I just wanted to wish a belated happy birthday to Mr. Roger Schroppen, who turned 9 6 days ago.
Awesome.
Aw.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's in his last year before he had double digits. Like all the rest of us.
Right.
Yeah, so that's fun. So, aside from that, I'm good, and if no one's got any other comments, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Supported.
Yep, motion and support at 11 after 9.
Oh.
So, all those in favor, signify by saying
Bye.
aye.